All right. Hi, Lydia. Thanks for joining me.
Hi, Mandy. Happy to be here.
Lydia and I just finished her Illumine journey literally yesterday.
hmm
So I think that's really exciting because all of this is super fresh and you get to speak about your experience from, I think, a place of like really kind of rooted, fresh eyes, right? Everything feels very relevant and real still. So I'm excited to chat with you about it today.
Yeah, it feels like, well, I couldn't stop getting enough of you. So, like, yeah,
I
let's
know.
meet today.
I secretly like get upset when Illumine ends too. So it's nice to be able to have these back-to-back days. So why don't you tell us just a little bit more about yourself,
hmm
who you are, like where you were coming into this program from, and like what you were really looking for when you signed up.
Absolutely. So I'm a multi-passionate, so I'll start there as I go into these things. I'm a dating coach and relationship coach and Reiki master, so I'm certified through the ICF in my coaching journey. And I've had that business for about 2 years. And then I work full time for another woman as a business and marketing coach and consultant. So I'm very much like, yeah, I spread my passions around that area. And I would say, like, I've been on a personal growth development journey probably my whole life. But I think when I really turned it on was when I was 22 and I had just graduated university. I started doing yoga for the first time, meditating. I'm 30 now for perspective. And then I started to read books like The Power of Now. Eventually, I started investing in joining a group coaching program that was all about relationships and connection to the universe. I've been a follower of people like Gabby Bernstein. I came in as somebody who's really familiar with healing and personal development and chakra work and this whole world. And I think I came to you for a couple of reasons. The first that stands out is because I already had trust with you just through like another program. And then also I did the Illuminate Your Block session with you and back in May. And I think like that opened up my eyes to the type of support I was looking for because I was definitely looking for support this year, but I was unsure about whether that was more strategic business support or just like energetic capacity support. And I think I've come into a moment in my life and career where I am holding a higher level of capacity. I have a lot more people I'm serving in many different ways in my personal life and in my businesses, and in the networking I do and the how I hold community. So all of these pieces, I just started to rise and wanting to rise to another level of not being burnt out by that, quite frankly, and noticing I was starting to teeter when I met with you a little bit on some burnout and a bit of these like other patterns creeping up because as you start to rise to that next level, it doesn't mean my next level was like six-figure status or speaking on all these big stages, but I was like getting more visibility opportunities. I was serving more people, coaching more people, being trusted a lot more. And that can bring up still some old patterns and like fears. So I think I just wanted the energetic up level. And
Mhm.
even as somebody who does this work myself, there's nothing like having somebody you trust to be a mirror for you and to hold space for you. Anyways, I can get more into like the sessions that were most profound for me with you, where I was receiving so much. But I think I was really looking to be energetically supported, held, and taken through this work through a lens by somebody who is similar to me and being like a spiritually conscious individual, but um, but also can still offer a unique perspective. Like you, even though I feel like we're very similar, your way of delivering it is different than my way. And so I was just like looking for somebody else to kind of guide me through. And for a longer period too, I think that's what ended up making me want to choose Illumine over your smaller one, your smaller program, is that I wanted to be with somebody for a long time. and the short term just wasn't going to cut it. And I was like, yeah, the fact about being like with you for 6 months just made me feel so supported and guided. So yeah, those are the reasons and the way I was looking for support.
Oh my gosh. I feel like I learned so much about your background and just what you shared there too. So thank you for sharing that. And I receive everything that you said about, just the trust and why my container. And I'm so interested. I have so many follow-up questions after that. But I want to point out the fact that you said, I am an energy worker. I am certified in Reiki. I do a lot of chakra work. Like, and I was still brushing up against some
Yeah.
of these issues. And I love that you can be candid about that because I think sometimes we forget that like every coach needs a coach and every healer needs a healer. And like there's no moment where we've just like reached that point where we've got everything all the time under control. Like we will definitely
Yeah.
go through those seasons, but that's not forever. Like there's always space to grow. And the more space we hold for people, I think the more space we need to be held in often.
hmm Yeah, I completely agree. And I think the masters at their craft are also continuing to be receivers of it
Hmm.
and like students of it. So
Hmm.
like I think I have a commitment to myself in general. Like I never want to be at this level that I can't like that I'm like, oh, I already know this.
Hmm.
Like I think then you're blocking so many blessings when you like operate and especially in a leadership capacity from that space. Um, and I want to set the example for also clients and people that I work with of like not putting shame to like getting support or asking for help and that it's really essential and required. Like, and again, going back to like, yeah, I mean, there was things that you taught me that I've and that we guided through that I already knew about, but it's just the way you deliver it, right? In your unique way that landed with me at the time I needed to hear it. Because sometimes, like, and I think also having a guide in that is like helpful because sometimes doing quote unquote the work on my own I mean, I liked my company, but it's not as fun, or I don't feel like maybe I'm getting those aha moments because I'm not speaking out loud to somebody who then catches it and like repeats it back to me or challenges me on something or like asks me follow-up questions. Like, you're so good, Mandy, with follow-up questions that um, and this is even, yeah, coming from a coach. But again, we have our own blind spots. Like coaches are great with follow-up questions, but sometimes not really with ourselves. So
Hmm.
it's just like having you there to like receive and ask. It just gave me this, like it opened up a whole gateway of that new capacity that I was trying to reach in my energy.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about that a little bit because you mentioned that there was like a few ways that you found yourself really expanding and
hmm
elevating. So I'm curious if there are any specific things that you can point to, like any ways that you saw yourself really grow and transform throughout this 6 months.
Yeah, definitely. And it feels very tangible, honestly. I think we can look at energy work and be like, oh, I don't know if that's like super tangible, like having energetic capacity, but let me ground it into like what
Thank
actually
you. I
happened.
love that you're saying that. Yeah.
And I think also, Mandy, you do a good job at helping like bring it back to actually the results that you're getting to as you're being guided in this program. So one major thing I first noticed that I set an intention around was to stop, to let go of people pleasing. I still have struggled with that my whole life, but still continuously when you're a space holder, and somebody who is an empath, like it just comes up. So I really wanted to kind of step into my rich, confident leadership, in the spaces that I hold as a facilitator, a workshop leader, a coach, all of these things. And I noticed myself at the point that I met you, yeah, like really taking ownership of people's results, and like taking on their disappointments um, or their own stresses or their own anxieties or their relationship to the program I was managing or their relationship to their own dating life as my own. And that's exhausting. And like you can't fully show up for somebody or do the work consistently and sustainably that you want to do. If you want to make an impact in the world and you are a healer and a coach, then like always owning people's results and like taking on 100% of the responsibility, it's just not conducive again to that long-term impact, especially because I want to be in it for the long game.
Hmm.
I want to be, writing books, doing tours, speaking on bigger stages. And I just knew if I continue to like really let how people perceive me be like one of, I think that thought might still show up here and there, but when it's like a prominent thought, then you're just again holding yourself back from your dreams and the impact you want to make, whether it is like attracting more clients, right? Because I
Yeah.
think sometimes we want to attract more opportunities in our business, but we're like subconsciously holding it back because it means getting more opinions about our work. And so I'm like, no, I don't
It's
want
just
that.
sticky energy, right? Like it just kind of bogs you down in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And so I noticed through my work with you that like I was letting go. Like I just noticed even when I would be on calls with people or receive emails that it didn't energetically sink into my body as much, or I didn't go to sleep. This is a big one. I didn't go to sleep thinking about it.
Mm.
Um, I've been in past situations and jobs where I've literally gone to sleep stressing about that person's reaction to things or stressing about their experience. And I think with you, like I stopped, that's a sign to me that the energy work really supported me because I wasn't falling asleep worried about their stresses. I was just falling asleep, like ready to
Yes.
hit snooze. And
I love that tangible example. It's so good. And that really does ground it in. It's like, oh, okay, here's how we can measure progress in a space where usually it's not as tangible and measurable, like you said. Super
yeah.
cool.
And
So,
then another very t tangible win with you was something that I set an intention with you was to attract and magnetize a partner and like somebody who, yeah, is expansive. And I've done also a lot of work on relationships and getting clear, especially as a dating coach myself. Who would I be if I didn't do that work? But I think what I was missing, the piece was still that energetic piece and being truly like a magnet and holding myself to a certain standard in my aura in pertaining to romantic relationships. And I met my partner within my time with Mandy. So, and it felt really easy. And I just giggle at, my session with you yesterday and us going through the wins and looking back on setting that intention in May. And then I met him in October and we became official in November. So there you have
yeah.
it.
Well, what I loved about that too was that it wasn't just about meeting a partner. It was about
Yeah.
how you showed up to meet and
Right.
magnetize a partner, like in a very specific way to draw someone in because you wanted to draw in a particular kind of person. And
Yeah.
that's what I
Yeah.
loved about that intention because it wasn't just about like having a boyfriend. Like you're obviously an incredibly smart, successful, beautiful woman. Like you could have any boyfriend you want, but it was about really
Yeah.
attracting a complementary partner who showed very specific traits and how you had to show up to be able to hold that.
Yeah, you're right. Because part of that intention was being in my flirty feminine essence while doing it, like making sure that I felt good along the way.
Yeah.
And that helps me remain more unattached, right?
Hmm.
Because that's my pattern in the past with relationships. And I can logically unattach, but sometimes I think like or I got better at logically unattaching from people that like weren't ending up to be my person or that I was heartbroken over. But I feel like there was still an energetic core that was there.
Hmm.
And we can talk about, the modalities that you use, but I know there was like one session that we did, which was a cord cutting, and like things like that are just so helpful to be guided through to
Hmm.
then feel like that energetic cord is cut.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good segue because that was another thing I wanted to ask you about. Because something I noticed about you in particular is that you really embraced the flexibility of this container, right? Where I was
Yeah.
like, I don't have a prescription for what type of session we do when. It was very much like, okay, now we've finished this session. What do you think you need next? And you were very thoughtful about choosing the modalities and the types of space that you wanted to be held in. Like,
Mm,
I'm just curious to hear your thoughts on that sort of structure and how you felt operating with that sort of agency.
Honestly, it was so refreshing. And in a day and age, I feel like I see this a lot in our space now, Mandy, where people just want to be told what to do.
Mhm.
Like, which is, I get that. Like, there's so much out there. There's so much like information overload to a degree where we're just like exhausted and we just want to be told what to do, instead of us making our own decisions. But I think at a certain point, that's exhausting. Like always just being told what to do, and then you lose access to your higher self in that process. And look, there's like a balance here. Like I love here again back to like being a student, like there's also opportunity to be like experiencing that, but I think with the work you do specifically, it actually emboldens you to have agency in a container like yours, especially when you are working with people like me who are leaders, right? Because we need to sometimes like think for ourselves
Yeah.
and listen to our intuition. And I think you give so much beautiful space and allowed me to really trust that and say, yeah, that's great. Let's do that and guide me through. And I loved that flexibility of me like tuning in to what I needed the most. Like I know there was one session where I was like, I really need EFT right now. And we didn't even have that planned.
Mhm.
But you guided me so eloquent and it felt like, oh, this relief, like, oh, I can just ask for what I need. I actually think it's a really good practice to be in a coaching container where you ask for what you need. I don't think it maybe that's something that sets you apart is I don't think it's there enough.
Mhm.
Um, to be asked what you need because again people just want to be told what to do, but I think if you're in a space, if you're looking to work with Mandy and you're like me, then like I would say like really go on that ride.
Yeah,
It'll just make you like a stronger leader because you'll be able to trust your intuition a lot more.
I love that. And I love what you're pointing to here also as like it's a conversation that we're
Yeah,
having,
it's a conversation.
right? It was never just like, okay, what are you doing next, right? And I don't
Yeah, no.
pretend to be the guru either. Like I can make
Yeah.
suggestions or I can ask thoughtful questions to help you, move towards what you want, but like I think what you're pointing to is this like really beautiful balance between like really allowing yourself to be held in space and poured into and guided and having someone really hold a strong space that can reflect back to you and also having agency with how that space moves and what you receive in that space and how you receive it. And so I think that we created a really great dynamic in that situation where we were able to kind of find that balance, which is, I mean, honestly, it's not common, I don't think, in these sorts of worlds. Like we tend to overstructure a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you do have the structure of like we move through the chakras in this order.
Mhm.
That's all I needed, honestly, like to just like give it some kind of containment. And then beyond that, like the fluidity and the tools that we used, when we were able to move on to another chakra. Like I remember I was like able to move on from like third eye, for example, I think rather quickly.
Mhm.
Um, or where else did I move on from quickly? I don't know, it was another chakra. Maybe it was solar plexus. I feel like I was like pretty good there and then wanted to move to like heart and throat.
Mhm.
Um, so I just appreciated that a lot.
Yeah. Well, okay, you've said a lot of really cool things that were unexpected, and I know we're kind of pressed for time. So I just wanted to see, before we wrap up, if there was just anything in particular that you wanted to emphasize about Illumine or any advice that you would give to someone who's sort of vacillating and considering it. Like, is there a certain type of person that you think would really benefit from it?
Yeah, I think a person that would benefit from Illumine the most is actually somebody who's done the work in a certain amount before. I'm not going to put like a to it, but like if you're somebody who, appreciates healing, is a healer, is a coach, a space holder, and you notice yourself, I think, on the edge of like reaching a new level. whether that's like you want to be able to attract new clients, you want to be able to speak on more stages, or even you want to attract a partner. I think like Mandy, also to your point, something that you said early on was like not many people bring in the partner aspect into your work. But like let yourself dance with that too, if that's like an element you're working on. So I think if you're just like if you're in a transition moment, especially in your career, business, or relationships, um, and know that you can address all three in this container. And that's what we did, right? We addressed like all three together, that this is for you. So definitely yeah,
Yeah.
it's for the person who, yeah, has done some work and just needs to be held through their next transition.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're a really beautiful demonstration of how universal energy work is and how it really bleeds into every area of your life. And, something that I really hold as a North Star for all of my work, and I say this a lot, but I think sometimes it sounds a little wonky when I say it. So I'm curious if you would agree with this statement and if you would phrase it a little bit differently, is I really see my work as helping people to become the person who can hold what they want. Meaning,
Mm,
like, we have these desires, these intentions, these goals, these dreams, and it's like, okay, who do I need to be? What do I need to heal? How do I need to show up? How do I need to shift my energy? What do I need to move inside of me in order to be able to rise up, to receive that, not to sabotage it, to hold it gracefully, to be able to grow with it, right? Like, that's sort of how I see this container serving. I'm curious if you would agree with that and if you would phrase that any differently or embellish it in any way.
yeah, I feel like this container is for the action takers who are obsessed with taking more action. Um, because I'm an action and taker, ambitious person, but I often don't stop to hold. And so, yeah, if you're like consistently going after your dreams, but you find yourself not owning your wins, not celebrating them or sharing them, and that could be sharing on social media or sharing with your circles, that means there's a part of you not able to like hold what you actually want. Um, and so, yeah, I think then that goes to what you're saying, that this is for you.
Cool. Thank you for pointing that out, that like symptom of like when we actually really can't hold something. So super helpful again in grounding some of these ideas in. All right, love. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to share your experience and just like open up about some of the things that you benefited from and that you enjoyed about Illumine. And I'm gonna miss hanging out with you every week, but I think the best thing about these sorts of longer containers is that I think we're just connected forever now, which is really exciting for me.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I'm so happy to be in your world, Mandy. And yeah, I think if anybody is like just like even on the fence, at least do the Illuminate Your Blocked session that you offer and like just see how that feels, because I think that's a good assessment for like whether or not this program is for you.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that because I think it is kind of a neat gateway and you can kind of see like what you can expect
Mm.
from Illumine just by doing that one session.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Amazing. Well, thanks, Lydia. Have a
Thank
great evening. Chat soon.